hello again, guys. What's going on? This is the Club of the Man 1993 coming to you for another retro review in my Retro SummerSlam review series, as we are now on SummerSlam 1994. This SummerSlam, watching it, I'll be honest to say, this was a very intriguing show, I felt, for the most part. Was it a consistent show? Definitely not. There were definitely some matches that had me really scratching my head. But there were some matches that really grabbed my attention. This show, I felt, with me, especially being a late bloomer wrestling fan, if I was I was alive in 1994, but I was not quite a year old yet whenever this show took place. But I feel like if I was to ever show a wrestling fan a show that consisted of something I felt that was really attention grabbing, this would be one of those shows, I felt, because of the WWF World Heavyweight Championship match. That is a match I think can be an attention-grabbing match to definitely get a wrestling fan interested, as a SummerSlam match and moment got me to be a wrestling fan, which we'll talk about that when we get to SummerSlam 2013. I can't wait to watch that show again. Probably the best SummerSlam of all time. This show, though, again, not the best one of all time, but I definitely think it may be the best one I've seen so far. There were some ups, some downs in this show, but there was a lot I liked in this show that I really felt was let's go. I mean, again, for not, seeing much of WWE at all back in the old days, this is one of the shows that had me thinking, you know what? This would be a good place to look around, see, what'll happen, especially with the Hart family storyline, pretty much. That is what was on fire around this time. But let's get right into this review. This is SummerSlam 1994. Took place on August 29th, 1994, at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. The Macho Man Randy Savage was some of the hosts for SummerSlam this year, as this event actually took place 2 months before he left the WWF to go to WCW. He unfortunately would never come back, unfortunately. We open up, though. Now, most of these SummerSlams, I felt we've gotten at least a decent to solid opener for the most part, like a good opening tag match or something like that. This one wasn't quite as good. This was probably the weakest opener we've seen so far, despite this being probably one of my favorite SummerSlams I've seen so far in this review series. It was Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, who I believe was pretty much done wrestling, was just more so of like a manager at this point. It was them taking on the Head Shrinkers, so Samu and Fatu, who, Fatu eventually went to be Rikishi. Now, I do remember hearing that the weekend of the show, the Head Shrinkers first were tag team champions, but they lost them to the team of Shawn Michaels and Diesel, who's also the Intercontinental Champion, going into the show, that is. So they just lost the tag titles. This match was alright. I mean, the match itself was decent. It wasn't anything too spectacular to write home about. But what did hurt this match, though, was the finish. I believe, DiBiase was used to pull off his usual heel tactics, trying to distract, the baby faces and their allies in the corner of Afa and Albano, or however you pronounce his last name. And I guess they got mad and they went in there and they started beating down on Bam Bam Bigelow. So it was a DQ finish. So at first, I remember thinking of from SummerSlam 1993, which wasn't a bad show at all, but there was a lot of DQ and count out finishes that definitely hurt my grade of the show. But this is the only one I believe we got as far as not a clean finish. Well, not a clean victory at all, as far as having a DQ or a count out in there. But it wasn't that the match itself wasn't too bad, but it wasn't really one of my favorites for an opener, at least for SummerSlam. Afterwards, there was a post-match beatdown, but then eventually, the baby faces, Samu and Fatu, came out on top just to give them a good reaction. So that was good, at least. But this match was just okay. I gave an okay rating, pretty much. If the finish was a little bit better, it would have been more of a decent opener, but didn't quite hit that level this time around. But Bigelow and IRS win by DQ. Just a little bit of babyface, getting their babyfaces getting their revenges afterwards and getting a good reaction from the crowd. We had a backstage segment with Leslie Nelson, who was looking around for the Undertaker, but he ran into another actor, George Kennedy. So they both looked together throughout the show for the Undertaker. We'll talk about that feud involving Taker when we get towards the end of this review. We had this match next, and this match was the first women's match, I believe, to be featured at SummerSlam. It was Alundra Blaze, the current Hall of Famer now, and at the time she was the WWF Women's Champion, taking on Bull Nakano with Luna in her corner. Now, I remember when I watched some of the first few WrestleManias, and I remember most of the women's matches weren't that great at all. But this match, I thought, was a really good women's match, I thought. We had Luna, of course, trying to pull off, the distractions as, the heel, advocate towards Bull Nakano, who was definitely, I thought was an impressive, Japanese wrestler or Chinese whatever nationality she was. But I thought she played, the role of, the bigger woman, as the woman that probably beat in this match. And Alundra Blaze, just that the champion that people could definitely get behind and just, would want to see her overcome the obstacle pretty much. I thought the story was told very well. There was some great action. It didn't look like a cat fight or anything like that. But it was definitely a lot better. My expectations going into it were very low, but the match again just capitalized and just surprised me big time. That I really thought this is probably one of the better matches on the show by far. Alundra Blaze does retain the championship despite, Luna trying to do some outside interference and whatnot. And Bull Nakano was definitely not an easy opponent to deal with. But I definitely was very impressed with when I heard that. No wonder why Alundra Blaze is a Hall of Famer, because she definitely put up a great show in this match. And I definitely was happy to see that as well. Alundra Blaze does retain, though, by pinfall. So yeah, definitely one of the best matches on the show, I gotta say. And then we had this match. It was Diesel with Shawn Michaels in his corner taking on Razor Ramon with Walter Payton in his corner. Now, around this time also, as I probably mentioned, starting in 1893, the WWF started going a little bit downhill because there was a lot of super big stars like, Hogan, Savage is next, Ric Flair, eventually Lex Luger, several others who left for WCW. Of course, Diesel, who eventually goes on to WCW, would be Kevin Nash and form the NWO. He doesn't stick around too much longer either. Just a couple more years for him. And so around this time, the roster was getting very thin. In 1995 was probably the thinnest roster they've had. So the WWF knew they had to gain viewers by bringing celebrity stars, which is why I believe at WrestleMania 11 they had a celebrity, not a wrestler, but a celebrity be in the main event of their show. So they brought in a very known football player in Walter Payton from the Chicago Bears. And because if people heard that Walter Payton's gonna be there, they would definitely gain more attention pretty much. But Walter Payton was in the corner for Razor Ramon. The match they had wasn't too bad at all, I would say. It was a good match they had, but the moment most noted here was, Shawn Michaels trying to cause the distractions outside of the ring. He got the referee away so he can expose a turnbuckle, which I think he just hit Ramon in the back, I believe it was. And then he eventually, got to take down, I think it was Walter Payton, or he got to take it down Razor Ramon on the outside of the ring after the refs being distracted. But then the turning point, though, in the match came towards the end, whenever Diesel was holding up Razor Ramon, and he went to super kick Ramon, but Ramon got out of the way, and instead HBK accidentally super kicked Diesel, and HBK was knocked out of the ring, and he's trying to get back into the ring because Walter Payton moved Razor Ramon over top of Kevin Nash for him to get the victory. And of course, Shawn Michaels tried to make this distance from him. Diesel got upset about that, but it was especially set, start the build towards the match. Eventually got WrestleMania 11, which I thought should have been the main event. That match was not a classic, but I thought it was a very acceptable match for the championship of the main event. But eventually, the championship match we got for the main event, WrestleMania, well, not the main event, but one of the matches at WrestleMania 11 was Shawn Michaels, who won the Royal Rumble in 1995 against Diesel. So that's more so set up. So we have a new champion in Razor Ramon, but was a good match, good segment. Definitely set down for the setup. I mean, for the WrestleMania match yet to come. We got this match. This match was more so of an angle, I'd say, pretty much, than an actual match itself. I mean, it was good. It was good for what it was, for being an angle, but it definitely didn't really lead to anything for, the guy who came out on top, pretty much. So I guess there's some storyline going on that apparently, Ted DiBiase was trying to get Lex Luger to sell out. And I guess they did have a little bit of a poll. I think 54% said yes, he did sell out. So Tatanka's trying to tell him otherwise, so they're trying to take out, the frustration of each other in the ring. So it was Lex Luger taking out Tatanka, both baby faces, keep in mind, at the time. Towards the end of the match, DiBiase comes out and starts, talking to Luger. Luger's like, "What are you doing out here?" It's like, I didn't buy into you, whatnot. Tatanka gets like a roll-up victory on him for the win. After the match, though, Luger starts yelling at, DiBiase. Of course, Tatanka's just like trying to convince him he's sold out. Well, the moment that Luger turned his back on him, Tatanka started attacking him, turning heel in the process. And he did like a vicious beatdown, pretty much showed that, he was the one who bought into Ted DiBiase and just wanted to, play around with Lex Luger or whatnot to help, elevate him as a heel, pretty much. There was time they were walking away, but DiBiase told him, get a little more, man, go back and do more. And he started beating down on him again. They shoved some money in his mouth. I don't know how much it was worth, probably a lot, whatever dollar bill they put in there. But yeah, but it didn't really lead to anything for Tatanka, though. I mean, he wasn't really nothing special as a heel either, so he never really got anywhere. So his turn didn't really matter much in the long run for what it was. It was still a shocking moment to happen as well, but it just didn't really lead to much. So I mean, the match was whatever. So I mean, this was still was for it was. Then we had Jeff Jarrett taking on Mabel with Oscar in his corner. Match was just boring. Again, when I watched, the WrestleManias and the Royal Rumbles, never really a big fan of Mabel or Viscera or eventually Big Daddy V. I think he was also. I mean, the crowd seemed to be entertained by him dancing, though, so I gave this a little bit more of an edge there. But the match just kind of pointless, kind of boring. Jeff Jarrett gets a win with a roll-up off the top rope, though, for the victory. Of course, we had the match. This is the match I'm going to refer to as, if you want to become a wrestling fan, I would highly suggest watching this match. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship in a steel cage match. This story was just awesome. Starting back the year before, I think at Survivor Series, whenever Owen was upset that Bret costed him him being eliminated. I mean, the Harts won their match at Survivor Series, but then Owen was upset because he played that Bret was the one who cost him his elimination, but then they made up, and they were in a tag match at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view and then Bret injured his knee, so Owen got upset, thought he was costing him again, and they set up to have a match at WrestleMania 10, which again was one of the best opening matches in WrestleMania history. Owen won that, but Bret still had a championship match later on that night, which he won, and then of course Owen won King of the Ring, and he just made his way up to the top and got all the momentum he could. But also, he had an ally in Jim Anvil Neidhart also, who was kind of in the same boat as Owen. Owen just felt he's always been living in Bret's shadow. And then, Jim being Bret's former tag team partner felt that, was probably more so jealous of his success. So the whole Hart family, Davey Boy Smith and all the Harts, Bruce, Don, all of them, were all in the crowd. But of course, Jim Anvil Neidhart was in the crowd also, but he was the one that was like all for Owen. The match happened as soon as Bret gets in the cage. Owen starts attacking him. They just go right at it. This was just, from seeing the shots of the family out in the crowd also to see the action go on in the ring, you just really felt for them as this whole rivalry was probably getting the hottest thing going on for the WWF at the time. It also was having an effect on the Hart family as well. Of course, but the whole time you notice how Jim is all for Owen, but everybody else is like they just want to see these two settle and just make up and just move on from it. How many times they were close to escaping the cage, but they would pull each other back in. These two brothers just beat the hell out of each other. Literally a classic, great wrestling, great storytelling. The match ended though wherever they were both on the outside of the cage. Owen got his foot stuck in the cage though, and Bret was able to jump down for the victory. But as soon as Bret won, Jim gets out of his seat and he pretty much clotheslined Davey Boy Smith and Dawn, his wife, whatever her name was, from behind over the barricade. He gets in there. He has a chain in his pocket. They lock him, Owen, and Brett inside the cage and start beating down on Brett. The rest of the family comes in to try to stop them. They all start arguing, but not Jim and Owen are just like pushing everybody off of the steel cage. But then things backfired when they dig into the steel cage and one had the bolt cutters and cut open the bolt and they escaped. So I believe when I saw that, I think they did continue to have I think Davey Boy Smith did come back. I can't remember, but whoever it was teamed up with Brett against Owen and Jim for the for most of the remainder of the year to try to just continue on the feud. Pretty much, I don't know if it culminated at Survivor Series or whatnot, but man, just a great match. Again, the storytelling there was just phenomenal. The involvement of the family was great. Well, they're actually the real family members and not just a bunch of guys dressed up like ladies like we had for the Bobby's Sister segment this past week on Raw. Don't make a bad reference, but this is a classic. This is so far, I'd say probably, well, not including SummerSlam's down the line, this is probably my favorite match so far I've seen in this whole SummerSlam review series so far is this match. Owen and Brett in the steel cage. Just an unreal match. The storytelling there was just on spot and everything. It was definitely a classic and one of my best matches of all time I would definitely consider. But we had that. And that should have been the main event. It really should have, but unfortunately it wasn't. Our main event. So 7 months earlier, back right before the Royal Rumble, or at the Royal Rumble, I can't remember, Undertaker was written off TV as he lost his match and he was attacked by like 12 other people in the match or something like that. He was supposed to be written off TV. He had like a back injury or something like that. Well, then Ted DiBiase, I guess, formed his own Undertaker or something like that. And this is Paul Bearer say that Undertaker is coming back. This is the real Undertaker, whatever. So it was Undertaker versus Undertaker. Now, here's the thing. Watching this match, I also saw somewhere online where somebody said this is probably the worst main event of SummerSlam of all time. Not sure if it's this or if it's the one next year, which is Diesel versus King Mabel. Those are definitely probably at least the two worst. This one was not quite as bad as I thought it was. I mean, as a match in general, but I think the reason why it gets a bad rating is because this was not, under any circumstances, a main event caliber match. I mentioned several times before, in the early years, Undertaker wasn't really anything too special to write home about, well, especially with his matches with Giant Gonzalez. Thank goodness we're past those now. But he still was kind of green in the ring at the time. So this match didn't really work too well. I mean, it could have been a little bit better looked at if it wasn't the main event after just following up the classic we had with the steel cage match. But it definitely didn't need to be the main event. Undertaker, the real Undertaker, Paul Bearer's Undertaker, wins the match. The light just shines, everybody's happy. The Macho Man, just said he told us he gave us a good show, which for the most part he did. I give this SummerSlam a B-. I mean, if some of the card structure was a little bit better, well, if that Owen and Brett match was the main event, I'm sure this probably at least gotten a B for this pay-per-view. But because of, this card structure was a little bit off, I gave this a B- though. But I think so far it's probably the best SummerSlam I've seen so far in this whole review series. So what is your grade for SummerSlam 1994? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And don't forget to click my like and subscribe or come to the channel and follow me on Twitter at DemandAirBrownie3. And with that, guys, I'm checking out. I will see you all later in my next video. And until then, guys, have a great night. Peace, everybody.